Hey, it's your number one podcast host, Marilu, also known as Flower Lady, also known as Blom. I'm back with season 2 of Let's Blom podcast. Now, this podcast is a chilled, safe space where not so chilled conversations happen for women by women. If you haven't checked out season 1, that was my trailer. That was my checking out how this podcast thing works. Season 2, I'm back. And I'm so excited to go ahead and jump into a topic that is pretty heavy weighted. But I'm saying this with a smile on my face because today's topic is about health. Okay, as a side note, I'm so sorry for sounding nasally. I'm still recovering. I'm in a 6 weeks recovery from a post-op that just happened. But before we get into that, let me not get ahead of myself. Today's topic is in 3 parts. We're talking my personal experience in the public health space, as well as women's health. And then lastly, we'll be talking about the NHI medical bill that our dear president is still trying to find a pen for to pass the bill. Let's get straight into the topic of today. Okay, before we do, I'm going to just share this one quote for the day that says, "Hold your head and your standards high, even as people or circumstances try to pull you down." I think that is so suitable and so relevant for today's conversation. I want to be honest, I want to be transparent because I want to provide a space where if I can be transparent and honest about some really uncomfortable things, then hopefully you can also, find it easier to speak on things with whoever it is that you choose to speak to, whether you send in a voice note to the podcast. Of course, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear your experience. And perhaps it could be a friend, perhaps it could be a family member, but just as long as you're comfortable with sharing your truth and you're not being shameful or feeling a sense of guilt or any sort of discomfort when it comes to your personal experiences, because they are valid, and it is important for us to cultivate spaces amongst people, that we can be honest and transparent about. So, okay, where do I even start? Where do I even begin to talk about what just recently happened to me? So, just a quick history. 2019, I was admitted to private hospital, for a gallstone. I couldn't walk. So one day I woke up, couldn't walk, couldn't eat, couldn't anything. I was rushed to the hospital. I was still living in Johannesburg at the time. Rushed to hospital, and they found out that I had this really big stones in my gallbladder. And just a couple of days after that, I was meant to travel. And it wasn't like a 1 hour flight. It wasn't really long. It was a layover flight. And I was hospitalized, and they kept me in there, and they didn't do an operation. They just drained the gallstones. I think it's more of like shrinking it. And I ended up getting out of there, and I ended up doing my travels. Obviously, imagine being on a plane and these little stones are rocking your belly. But that was a very comfortable experience because private healthcare is pretty cute, very cute. So this time around, before that, they had told me that they'd found some things they'd found some cysts on my ovaries, and that I should come back. And so when I eventually returned, those cysts were gone, and I didn't need an operation for that. Fast forward a couple of years later, it's 2024. I go out for a run. I come back in the evening. I'm there's a strange pain in my belly, but I think my pain threshold is pretty high because I'm a mom and I've gone through the labor pains. So all of those kind of things kind of doesn't scare me anymore, right? And it starts getting to a point where I can't walk, I can't eat, I can't sleep. And so the following day, I'm thinking, okay, let's just self-remedy, let's rehydrate, this is going to be okay. Maybe I just pushed myself too hard in the run. You know what I mean? You kind of downplay health in a major way sometimes. I don't know how to say it. I think maybe just me. I don't know how it is for you, but I kind of downplayed it. And I was like, no, I'm fine. My mom insisted. We went to Mediclinic Went to Mediclinic, and they have those little private areas where, like those emergency areas, and I ended up having severe nausea, like really bad, to the point where my intestines twisted, and because I was literally like, everything was like, my body was like it was like, I don't even know how to say it. It was like a tremor, and he said that he's going to send me off for scans, and I was like, the girl didn't fill out her medical aid form, so we're gonna have to go to public. And I'm all chilled about it. I'm like, this is fine, it's cool. I mean, I haven't been to a public hospital in like, I can't even tell you if I can't even remember, and to my surprise, wonk, 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 this experience has, like, it was a humbling, let me just, to put it lightly, it was a humbling experience. It was unbelievably, excruciatingly more painful than the pain that I felt, the treatment. But we'll get into a little bit of those things and just kind of how I empathetically see it from their side and what my experience as a patient was. So I get to one of the public hospitals, and first of all, there's no bed for me. Secondly, I'm in serious pain. I'm waiting to be seen by someone. I mean, I ended up going into X-ray only like, I don't know, you probably could say 10, maybe a day later, than my arrival. One of the, I think if I could be really honest with you, I think that there's a sense of, now from a patient's perspective, there's a sense of, you don't know, you can't afford healthcare the way they look at us. You can't afford healthcare. So whatever healthcare we're giving you, just hush up, accept it, and that's it. Now, I wasn't born on that side of the coin of silence. Like I speak, and I speak my mind. And so obviously, I took out the English that my parents paid for. I took out the English that my parents paid for and made my life I made my life tougher than what I was supposed to experience, right? So one of the doctors was really intensely rude about sleeping because there was a whole lot of chairs, right? And I just made myself comfortable. My parents brought me a couple of things to just be comfortable. And she was like talking about not sleeping that way or whatever. I said, well, and I answered her in a very witty way, and I made life really, really tough because I was the last person that they had eventually seen out of the batch of people that had come in a previous couple of days ago. And just FYI, didn't eat for 4 days because I'm waiting for a surgery. So this is the diagnosis. First of all, they say my appendix is about to rupture, or my appendix is problematic. That's why I can't walk. And that's why I've got this excruciating abdominal pains. And then I get into surgery. In surgery, they start off with the appendix removal, and then they find out, but there's cysts. So they call a doctor from another public hospital, to come through and do the surgery. End up doing the surgery, I've got about, if I could say, 15, 16, 17 centimeter cut across, not across, like literally down my belly. And that's why I'm speaking very nasally, because I've got no diaphragm support to help me. But nevertheless, this podcast is going to happen. And I literally, I'm cut this way, and I'm waiting for the ambulance to transfer me. Anyway, we get to... the ambulance now don't eventually show up, and I get to a ward, and there's a drip on me I think it was saline, it was some sort of hydration, I'm not quite sure what it was, but I then noticed that this drip is now sucking the blood out of me and back into the tube. And I just politely asked the sister, hey, could you just maybe have a look at it before I could finish my sentence? Say sak af. She didn't know that I could speak Afrikaans, because first of all, everybody always thinks that I'm closer, and that's fine. That's not an issue. We don't have an issue with that. My issue is being people being classist and people being, a particular kind of way towards people who seemingly economically cannot finance their well-being, right? So she said something in Afrikaans to one of the other sisters. So I literally just ek het afgehaak. I literally just said that was like literally the biggest mistake that she ever made. She comes back pointing at me, talking about all sorts of this, that. I'm like, I just wanted to tell you that I'm cold, my arm's cold, and I would just like you to assist me to close this thing up, right? And she points at me, and I literally say to her, if you're going to be a sister, and if you're going to behave in the way that you're behaving after taking an oath to solemnly swear to take care of your patients to the best of your ability, then I'm not going to respond to you. I'm not going to respond to you if you don't lower your finger. And she literally, for those of you who understand Afrikaans, she says, you know when someone mocks your English? Rah, 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 rah. She walks away then. I'm like, I had to start literally finding a laugh in me, because if I was not going to laugh about it, I was going to cry about the situation. My mom got escorted out with like 3, like just thinking about it now makes me laugh. Got escorted out with like 3 guards that came. My mom was like, I'm perfectly able to walk myself. Thank you very much. And she comes back then politely, and then assists me, and then proceeds to sing gospel songs saying that the devil is in the place. Now, I'm not sure who she's talking about or what she's talking about. But those are one of the things that happens. The other thing happens is I just politely ask, can I please have my slippers, because I want to go to the restroom. Now, these restrooms are really unkept, and obviously I understand that there isn't money, and nurses are frustrated. They're striking in the ward while people are busy like leaving this earth, physically leaving their body. I don't even want to say dying, because it pains me just to think about it. I mean, I think I have the opportunity to not have to be able to go back there, but I think about those individuals who have to suffer through that and have to harden themselves, because at some point I just hardened myself and my emotions, and I allowed myself to just sort of go through the flow of it and make friends where I could. It felt like a jail, and I was building allies, and I don't know how a jail feels like, and God forbid I never end up in any one of those spaces. But here's the thing, right? There are some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful nurses that really take pride in their job, and I salute them in the public sector. But obviously, we're, as human beings, we're always focused and prone to look at the negativity that comes from that. It also doesn't diminish the fact that the health system, the way they work, their system works, the lack of humanity that they have, a lot of them have. Is quite astounding. It's shocking, and it's appalling, and it's inhumane. I've never experienced anything like that before, and it was an extremely humbling experience. And I don't have wisdom or notes or any of those kind of things. I'm just like constantly thinking about these women who have given birth, lost their babies, and get shouted at and get this or that. You know what I mean? There's not soap, there isn't this, and so. I had that experience, and it was something to definitely note and to become aware of. And I think even in my prayerfulness, I was like, thank you for this level of humbling, because I, for the most part, grew up in a bit of a bubble, and I've never had to endure any of such magnitude of trauma whilst being treated in a specific kind of way. But shout out to all of the nurses that have really like held it down, that sat with me while we were waiting, that, laughed with me, that, I actually, even in retrospect, could say I had fun, and I have a little bit of withdrawal, because you build community. Well, I love people, so I build community so fast where you just feel like, oh my gosh, that collective pain feeling brought us together. And I think that's what love looks like, and that's, I think, the thing that heals this world. We know God is love, and that's the thing that kind of brings us together. And so that's kind of just like what briefly, and when I say scraping the surface, briefly happened in that time. And so yeah, this is recent, and it's scary to think that the big gap between how you get treated privately and publicly, and how and the percentage of people who are unable to afford healthcare and the necessity of it, how needed it is. There's so many people in pain. And I think I sat countless nights just crying, not for my pain, just crying out, just literally, like, whenever I heard a cry or whatever, just saying, Lord, comfort that person's heart, and bless these sisters that work tirelessly for next to nothing. I also am empathetic about their experience, how their bosses don't listen to their queries, how frustrated they are when they get to work, how frustrated the ones who are working versus the ones who aren't working. You know what I mean? How they are towards each other, their work dynamics, all of those things. But I do think that we all need to still remain intact with our humanity and move from a place of serving more than, I'm frustrated because I'm not getting ABCD or this is problematic in my workspace. I think that goes across the board for everything. I mean, I've said a lot. This is my experience. I wanted to document it as soon as possible. And I mean, I sit here and I just marvel at how gracious God has been in terms of just helping me heal, and how thankful I am for everybody that supports me. And then I think back on like people not being supported, people coming out of hospital, especially women, And now my issue is still with the fact that it affects my cervical area, like, that part of me. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, and I could just say thank you that I could make this podcast, and I really do hope that I could just share this experience. And I hope that, you pop me a message or you send me a voice note, tell me about the craziest experience that you've ever had when it comes to public health. And and I think that I could have taken an approach of feeling shame about it, but instead of that, just reframe, like my mother always says, just reframe the experience and take out what the lesson is. My lesson is filling out those medical aid forms. That's the lesson. Filling out the insurance forms for my phone, filling out this, just being covered all the time. We live in South Africa at the end of the day. Not to say that we can't change, but I think that these conversations can then help, create more conversations, and we can kind of find a space where we all can, express ourselves, because we're all human. I mean, I only dealt with women most of the time, like 99% of it. And I'm grateful for the good and for the bad. And then we go to, I don't know if you've heard of this, but there's an NHI Bill, the National Health Insurance, where I want you to read up on it. I'm gonna drop the parliament.gov.za link in the description, and I want you to read up about it, and I want to know what you think about it, because this funds will be obviously, like, it'll obviously come from taxes, and people earning above a certain amount, and then the same way that they contribute to the UIF, they'll contribute to this NHI fund, because they want to reach a universal health coverage where it doesn't matter who you are, that the expenses of the healthcare system is reduced. So that's very interesting. I'm really eager to see how they roll that out, and because more than anything, I can say that I'm going to be covered, but I'm thinking about the greater good of the country. Like, will there ever come a time where we all will be covered medically, irregardless of our socio-economical status? So that's quite an interesting one. Did you know that only 15% of South Africans have medical cover? I mean, I'm a dreamer. The NHI seems like it's selling really legitimate dreams. I wish the administrators all the best. I don't know how it's going to roll out, but I do know that it will, to some degree, roll out, and I would love to be around to see that come into play, come into action in this country. Like I said, the dreamer in me is like, if we could bridge the gap between the other 85%, that would be incredible. Nonetheless, I mean, I mentioned earlier how I downplayed how I wasn't feeling well. And we all know as women, we kind of prioritize everything else except ourselves. So I would like to lay a plea with you. Go and check out your lady parts, ladies. Make sure that everything is intact and that you are healed within, and you can't pour from an empty cup at the end of the day. So I am pressing emphasis on women's health, on our bodies, on making sure our minds are well, and that we can, live to see our kids grow up, and that silly little things like, not going for our yearly checkout doesn't, affect our lives. I'm really grateful that you took the time out to listen to this first episode. Look forward to a lot more guests being part of this podcast. It is for women and it is by a specific woman. And I can't wait to share some really beautiful gems that I've met on my journey. And we're going to be talking about an array of things. And I want you to let me know what it is that you want to chat about so that I can just make myself a Popeye and speak on that topic as openly as I possibly can. And so we can go along this journey and just make being a woman a little bit easier. I think talking makes it a lot easier. And having community makes it a lot easier. Right, so that's it for episode 1 of season 2. Didn't think we'd jump off starting with such a topic. I mean, obviously kept it light, but I mean, there are some depths and serious things to it. But obviously when we retrospect, talk about certain things, it makes it a little bit easier when you have a mindset to shift things into a positive perspective. Like I always say, stay kind to your mind, stay soft with yourself. I think that it's a beautiful journey to be a woman, but it is also a serious responsibility to carry that name. It comes with so much. And I absolutely, it's my honor to be here. Well, I'll chat to you in episode 2. I can't wait. For now, bye-bye.